Hello everyone and welcome again to our first podcast of 2023, and I am overjoyed to be sitting here today with Rowena, and I'm going to let Rowena introduce herself very quickly.
Hello everyone, I'm Rowena Gilbert. I work in capabilities as a service product owner. I've been working in computer centre now for almost 14 years at the end of this month. So the reason I'm here today is to talk to you a little bit about autism. I have a 6-year-old son called Medwin who was diagnosed with autism almost 4 years ago. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my journey through the diagnosis, what that means for me on a day-to-day basis, and also to share some of my stories with you.
Thank you so much. And this coincides very cleverly, I promise it wasn't planned, with Children's Mental Health Week that's coming up next week as well. And we are having some webinars, so please keep an eye out for those links. You can find the links to those on the 1cc email that was sent out last week, but I'll also put a link to the webinars along with this podcast onto our Yammer pages as well. Rowena, thank you so much. I want to start off by asking you about Medwin. You know, every time I speak to you, your face just lights up, and you know, he's the same age as my older son, so we have so much in common when we're talking as parents about how hard it is. We were just talking about the teachers' strike and how we had to do things with them because they were at home. But you said something really interesting. You said it was really hard for you to explain to him that he had to go back to school again today. So yeah, I bet it was, but it made me realize that even though there are so many similarities, it must be really, really hard for you still to have to explain to Medwin when something's different or what's going on in the world. So I think it will be really, really great to hear about, you know, what happened to take you down the diagnosis route, and just tell us about your journey.
Yeah, of course. So to be honest, in the beginning, we were going down a completely different path. Medwin wasn't talking and he couldn't hear. So we were going down the ENT route to understand why he couldn't hear. He went under a general anaesthetic to check if he needed to have grommets put in. And all of that, he did actually have gluea in the beginning. So they put the fact that he wasn't talking down to the fact that he couldn't hear. Okay. So that for us was the first part of the journey. But then when he started to hear, so he couldn't even hear if you put pans behind his head and started banging them together. He literally had no hearing whatsoever up until he was, I guess, 2.5 maybe. But when his hearing cleared up and he still wasn't speaking and he was missing a few of the milestones, so he was late to walk, but again they put that down to balance of not hearing properly. So it was a little bit difficult to actually understand which route to go down, when to start looking at autism as a possibility. But when we ruled out the hearing issues and he was able to hear again and he was missing other targets, had a conversation with the health visitor, and there was a few traits in there. So his eye contact was very poor. If you were looking and talking to him, he wasn't looking at you. So through speech and language that we were seeing as well, because he was delayed with his speech and he said nothing. He didn't say hi, he didn't say mum, he didn't say dad, no speech whatsoever. So that was the other trait that was called out, that he was very, very late at to say any sounds, any words. The next one I would say is he would like spinning wheels. So we would go to baby groups and he'd find a pushchair, turn it over and start spinning the wheels on it because he got a lot, he was stimulated by spinning the wheels. If you gave him a car, he would kind of take it down a ramp and make it go spin, obviously a toy car, not a real car, and make that spin and go down the car ramp as fast as he possibly could. And the other thing that was there in the beginning was he used to sit and kick his legs really, really fast. Like, honestly, I cannot move any part of my body as fast as how he used to kick his legs. And that has later turned into what's called stimming. And people will see that as children flapping their hands when they get either really happy or really sad. So these are all traits that Medwin was demonstrating, which led us to the paediatrician back in, when was it? September 2018. So he was about 2.5 at that point.
And was he going to nursery, or was he at home with you this whole time?
So he had a nanny for 2 days a week. He was with my husband for 2 days a week, and then he was in a private nursery for 1 day a week.
And did the nursery, I'm just interested in knowing whether the nursery picked up on anything, and were they supportive in any way?
Oh, the nursery were absolutely amazing. So they used to provide us with a booklet at the end of the day, a communication booklet, to show us what had he eaten, his toileting, what he'd enjoyed playing, what he didn't. But again, they also put it down to hearing, because he didn't hear anything that they would say or do. So they were a little bit surprised, actually, when I said we were going to go down the route with the paediatrician to get him assessed for autism. Yeah, I don't even think it was on their radar, because the hearing was just such a dominant part of his life.
So I'm just thinking, if there are any parents out there listening whose, young children are going to nursery or are at school, would you, encourage them to, pursue things with the nursery and with the school? Is there anything that they should be saying to the school or nursery to support as much as they can? This is before diagnosis, obviously.
Yeah, I personally, being open with the nursery, because this is preschool nursery now, and before they get into the kind of government and schools where the nursery is, this was the private one, is just be really open and ask a lot of questions as to how he is and how he's interacting with other children. Because autism as well is about the social skills, and maybe not necessarily having those social skills. I always remember we had several appointments with speech and language therapists, and they said to me, Medwin plays strange. And I said, what do you mean by strange? He doesn't play like the other children. What does that mean? Because Medwin's my first and only child. So I didn't really understand what she meant by play strange. But what she meant was he's not imitating, he's not copying other children, he's not kind of role playing, seeing a stethoscope and then trying to put that on him like you may see in a doctor's surgery. He wasn't doing those things. Imitating and copying is something that came a lot later to him, which he does do a little bit of now, but he didn't when he was younger. And that's where speech comes in, because they're copying what you're saying, and he wasn't able to do that either.
You've just hit on such an important point there, Rowena. Medwin is your only child and he's your first child, and so you had nothing to compare him to.
No.
Almost. So I think, having some sort of awareness, signs, symptoms, traits to look out for is so important. Absolutely. And that's why I asked about the nursery, because obviously my 2 little boys went to nursery as well. And I sometimes used to see other children, and my eldest would say to me, Mummy, so and so doesn't play like, the other children, exactly what you said, and I'd be like, I don't understand what you mean. So yeah, I'm wondering, do they show those traits from a very young age? Because I heard somewhere, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because that's what we're here for, that you're not able to really pinpoint autism in children until they're about 2. Is that correct?
I would say that's when the traits became more obvious. Absolutely. Because up until that point, gosh, I wish I could take myself back to the naiveness of when he was 18 months old and I knew nothing that I know today. And yeah, he just seemed exactly the same as all of the other children. But then when he was hitting 2 and starting to miss the milestones, and there was a few things, eye contact, so important. And I wasn't even looking out for him giving me eye contact, because we do that so naturally. We're talking to each other now, looking into each other's eyes, but I guess you don't realise, oh, I'm doing eye contact. And the whole moving really fast with his hands and his feet when he's excited, I just put that down to, because he can't talk, then that's his way of expressing himself. But actually stimming is a trait of autism. I just didn't know it before.
Of course,
I just didn't know.
Absolutely. You know, going through the diagnosis journey must have been so tough on both yourself and your husband. How did you cope with it personally?
Honestly, I felt really alone in the journey because I didn't know anybody else who'd ever been through an autism diagnosis journey. And I was pretty much led by the speech and language therapist that we had, who was absolutely amazing. I literally spoke to her about everything, not just speech and language. And I learned so much of her. And I'm not really afraid to ask questions. So we used to ask her quite a lot of questions, and the paediatrician as well was really, really good. So I was really reliant and had to trust them because I knew no different. And I had nobody else to refer to. I don't know any other parent. I didn't know at that point any other parents of children with autism. So it was a really lonely journey. And because I didn't know that that's where we were going to end up at the end of the diagnosis journey, I also didn't talk to any of my friends about it. We didn't speak to any of our families about it until we had the diagnosis, because I didn't want to, I'm not sure if this is the right word, worry my parents unnecessarily about something that it may not have been. Is it still related to his ears, and that's why he's delayed in his development? We just didn't know. But then the diagnosis did come in March 2019. But then I felt quite numb because I didn't know how to feel when we had the diagnosis. What does this mean? What do I do next? What's this going to mean for his life? What's it going to mean for my life? So many questions. I didn't know, but it's still just lonely.
I absolutely can't imagine what you must have gone through, but did you feel some sort of relief having a diagnosis, because you could put a plan into action?
Yes.
And you thought, right, we know what it is, rather than guesswork. Could it be this? Could it be this?
Absolutely. And I very much needed a plan for me to understand what it was, to then put a plan in place. And even now, when he starts to hit targets, I'm like, right, what's the next plan? Need to know what's next. Can't keep still, because he's relying on me to develop now. So I can't let him stand still. I can't let things go. He needs his next plan and his next plan after that. So yeah, maybe that's just my personal side. But the one thing that I said, and this will stay with me for life, and when people ask me about my diagnosis with Medwin, I said to the paediatrician, what's 2 things now that I absolutely need to do as a parent now that you've given me this diagnosis? What's the 2 pieces of advice that you would give to me? And the first one was, attend the Early Birds training course to help you understand more about autism. You can meet other parents and you can go through the training course to help you to understand strategies and things that will help you with Medwin. So I was like, okay, I will get myself booked onto that training course. And I did, and it was absolutely fantastic. And the second one that she said was, always keep change in your life. You need routine, because he will learn by routine, and he absolutely does. I've got some examples I can share with you around that in a moment. always introduce change, because if you never go anywhere, you never do anything different, he will never know how to adapt himself to change. You will be one of these families that stays in and doesn't go anywhere, that eats the same food. So whenever you think, oh, I did that last time, try and think about a way of introducing change to your life so that Medwin gets used to change. And that stayed with me.
That is some very, very sound advice. And as you were speaking then, Rowena, with the second point that you made about making change because we adapt and we learn, we take that for granted, don't we?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It comes naturally to us. So for, Medwin, it must be so difficult if you do, move away from his routine a little bit. How does he cope with that?
So again, back to your previous point, we have to plan change. I know that may sound a little bit strange, but we have to plan to do that. And the communication that we use is really important, because he still has very limited understanding. He has a lot more understanding than he had 4 years ago, but his understanding is very limited. So we need to use short sentences and keywords. And my best friend is my laminator. So we print out a lot of visuals for him to show him and storyboard what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be changing that within the plan. So I've got folders in the house of different themes of outdoor activities, indoor activities, foods, and everything to show him. One of the strategies I learned in the training was this is applied in lots of different parts of learning, but the whole iceberg strategy is to what you can see above, there must be something underlying that has happened to surface what's on top. So what we will see of Medwin is he's having a meltdown. Why is he having a meltdown? If I lift the lid on that, it's because I've taken him out of the car, into the car, where he's been really comfortable watching his tablet in the house, and he had no idea why I took him away from that and put him in the car, and we're going somewhere really cool. We're going to a soft play or something, but he didn't know that. So that meltdown, I need to find a way of making sure he doesn't melt down, and through visuals to show the routine, storyboard. They do the same in school, where they show what you're going to be doing, morning, afternoon, etc. And we have to apply the same at home as well.
And you're doing all of this whilst working as well.
Yeah.
How do you do it, Rowena? How do you do it?
Well, Medwin puts me to work every day. So by routine, as he leaves for school, because every day he comes home and he finds me here in my office, I think he thinks I spend the entire day here without going out, having lunch,
because
going to the toilet, getting a drink.
Yeah.
So every day when I say, okay, Medwin, time for school now, put his shoes and his coat on, he then points at the door, says, bye-bye, love you, opens the door for me, holds my hand, brings me into my office and closes the door and puts me to work every day. So yes, that's the first part of the day. So he makes sure that every day that I do come to work. And even if I walk out of here at 4:30 when he's home from school, he still points at the office to make sure that I come back, because that's where mummy belongs up until tea time, when I'm allowed out of my office in Medwin's world. But yeah, in terms of the balance, I've been really fortunate with my line managers who've been really understanding. I think I've had 3 different line managers since the diagnosis, but all of them are really interested. And I'm very open as well about Medwin's autism. Now I've come to terms with it myself and I understand more about it. I feel that I want to share, and I want, where people are interested and they want to be educated, I'm really happy to do that. But yeah, I mean, the line managers that I've had have been so supportive and understanding, because there's certain times in the year where I have to spend more time at school. So Medwyn's in a special school. In fact, the one that they've just made the BBC programmes for, that's available on iPlayer. I'm not sure if you've seen series 2.
We're going to link that when we send out this podcast.
Oh, brilliant. So yeah, Medwyn attends the UK's largest special school, which they've done 2 documentary series on. So he attends that school. What was I saying?
So it must be hard to get childcare during certain school holidays.
Oh, yes, it is, because all of the summer school camps and after school clubs, they're not really tailored for children with special needs, where the child needs one-to-one support. I'm lucky to have my mum, who attended the training course that I mentioned earlier with me, and oh, she's so good. She keeps the visuals around her neck as well every time she's with him, so he can choose what he wants, and she can show him where they're going, etc. So we do have her, but unfortunately, it is then down to myself and my husband to look at options in terms of childcare during the school holidays, because we don't have clubs, etc., that we can go to. But I have found the parental leave policy very, very useful. So I started with this last year, and again, my line manager was really supportive, and actually we kind of talked through the detail around this policy, because I don't think there's so much awareness around parental leave. So you're entitled, so you're entitled to 18 weeks of unpaid leave up until your child is 18. So what I've decided to do is take 2 weeks of parental leave alongside 2 weeks of holiday each summer, which then gives me 4 weeks off with Medwyn, and then my husband and mum can cover the rest, and then we've got the other school holidays. But at least that gives a block of consistency and routine for my son that needs that. It would not be feasible to be putting him somewhere different each day of the week whilst I'm at work. So we need to block back in this way to give him that sense of security and routine.
Absolutely.
But yeah, going back to the point around kind of work-life balance. So Medwyn has 3 sets of targets per year where I need to meet with the school to agree the targets, the learning targets that he's going to be working on. And we have the annual review process, which is probably about 10 pages that I need to fill in of where he is, assessing him on different things, where he's struggling, targets for the next year, which is really time consuming. So I just discussed with my line manager at these times of the year to say, right, I'm in one of these cycles again, and then working around lunch hours, etc., to just take a bit of extra time, because this is so important. I need to get this right. I need to make sure that he can keep his place in the special school, and I need to have no distractions around me whilst working on these really important pieces of documentation, information that then gets fed into the local council to allow him to keep his place in the special school.
I want to know how you look after yourself through all of this. You do so much, Rowena. You are an absolute inspiration, and listening to you speak makes me almost feel like, I wouldn't say inadequate, but I'm moaning having 2 young kids.
No, please
compared
don't
to
think
what
like
you're
that.
going through. It just seems like so much, and you're so well loved at work as well, and I just want to know how you look after yourself. What do you do for you?
Well, that's really good timing, actually. This weekend I have a spa weekend booked with my friends.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, just a girly weekend with my friends. Spas are my thing, actually. For Christmas and birthdays, family and friends buy me spa vouchers for the local spa, so that lunch hour or after work I can go and get a little treatment, and that's the me time.
Amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Rowena, I wanted to ask you a few questions, if it's okay,
Yeah.
about I myself don't know much about the terminology when it comes to autism. How would you describe someone? Would you say someone has autism, someone is autistic? If someone like me who doesn't know much about it wants to get the terminology correct, how could you help us with that?
Yeah, I think to say having autism is a softer approach. And I've actually had this conversation with some of my other mum friends from Medwin School. And yeah, people feel that autistic is very kind of pointing the finger, very harsh way of saying it, whereas autism is just a softer way of approaching has autism. It's not wrong to say is autistic, it just sounds harder. Yeah, we've had that conversation actually as mums. And all of us are on the same page that we do prefer, and all of us say our child has autism.
Thank you. It always gets me because I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I know there are people listening as well who
Oh,
probably
I've
feel
heard
the
lots of
same.
wrong things actually. I remember when somebody says, "What's wrong with your son?" And I say, "Oh, nothing's wrong with him." "Yeah, but why is he doing that like flappy thing with his hands?" And it's like, I said, "Oh, he has autism." "Oh, I'm sorry." And I said, I don't know why you're sorry. There's no need to be sorry. Um, yeah. Oh, and then they say, "Oh, well, I'm sure he'll grow out of it when he's older. He'll be good at something." And I think that's, it's, I know they just want to say something. But when people say, "Oh, he'll be good at," we must have had it 20 times. "Oh, he'll be good at something. He'll grow out of it." That's not how it works. We learn strategies together in order to help him cope day to day. And his speech is coming along now. We've got a few words. In fact, like the best Christmas present ever was in December. He started to say mama for the first time, which literally brought tears to my eyes. And even thinking about it now is giving me goosebumps. But I heard the mama word for the first time. It's a lot of hard work, but when you hear that, the little things are so rewarding. I can't tell you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can imagine. Rowena, just to finish off our podcast, it's been amazing listening to you, and I've learned so much from your journey, but also how to respond as well to parents at Computer Centre who are also going through the same journey. So we've spoken before, haven't we? And we're going to set up a parents and carers network,
Yeah.
so that we can support all the parents and carers at Computer Centre. So a little bit more on that later on in a few months down the line when we launch that. But just to finish off, what two pieces of advice would you give to a parent or a carer?
I would say be really open about any diagnosis that you have. Don't try to hide it, because actually that is more stressful, and people want to learn, and it will open up questions and give you a whole new network. So just from talking about my son and autism, we've got a community actually within Computer Centre, which is linking into your parents and carers community, purely of parents of children with special needs. And having that community is so useful because we can share ideas. They can celebrate the little things. You know, that story I just told you about my son saying mama, they get it. They get how important and what a huge achievement that is. So I would say be open about it. There's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about, but yeah, just be open. And the other one, probably for parents or other people who maybe don't see autism day to day, ask questions. I love it when people ask me questions about it, because then that shows me you're interested and that you care and you want to make a difference, because only by understanding and educating yourself can you then do something about it.
That's very, very sound advice. Thank you so much, Rowena. Thank you so much for your time, for your honesty and for your openness, and you truly are a super mum. Honestly, you are.
I'm not
And
sure
I love
about
to-
that, but I try
No,
my
you
hardest.
And I love talking to you because every time I do, I feel more and more inspired. Thank you.
No, thank you for the invitation today.